because you never know who's in your audience who can enable that next step for you. And I want to close with a very clear illustration of why and how that is. 15 years ago, I was in Nashville, had just finished a speech. I was at the airport on my way home, excited to get back home for dinner. My phone rang and a voice on the other end, because it said private. I didn't know who it was going to be. I said, hello, this is Dan. Hello, Dan. This is John Goddard. The Life List guy called me. And here's why. 6 months earlier, I had done a speech. I shared his list. I talked about how it impacted my life and caused me in my teen years to envision a bigger idea of success for myself and to commit to certain goals and ambitions in a meaningful, powerful way. A young lady approached me after that talk and said, thank you for talking about John Goddard. That's my uncle. You never know who's in your audience. So now he called me and he said, Dan, how do you use my list? And I said, well, Dr. Goddard, I talk about the power of goal setting. And he said, oh yeah, I think the problem is most people don't set their goals high enough. And they don't feel the excitement and the thrill of going after them. What do you think, Dan? He asked me. And I said, well, I agree, and I don't think most people write them down. I think they just keep them in their minds, and they need to write them down, as you did. And he said, oh yes, it all begins there. When you speak it or you write it, you make it real, and you activate the powers around you to attract what you need to accomplish that goal. Then he asked me, Dan, how many goals do you think I've achieved? Well, I knew the answer. I knew that of the original list of 127, he'd actually achieved 112. But I wanted to flatter the man, so I aimed a little lower, and I said, well, Dr. Goddard, I mean, achieving even 100 of those life goals would be amazing. And here's what he said next. He said, Dan, I wrote that list when I was 15 years old. Surely you don't think that's all I've aspired to do. He then told me his list was now over 600 goals. Of those, he had achieved 520. And he wasn't bragging. You have to understand, he was excited about his life. He was passionate. He was asking me, what are you working on? Because what can I learn from you? I've never met a man or woman that I could not learn from. That's what he said. And since that day, we became great friends. I visited him when I was out in California every time for a speech. We went hiking in the mountains of La Cañada. We went back to Egypt on John's 80th birthday and the anniversary of his #1 goal. Get this, to celebrate those two occasions, we were on the Nile River. Of course, we weren't in a kayak, we were in a cruise ship, but it was still very cool. And when John passed away 5 years ago, and his wife Carol called me and she said, Dan, would you please officiate John's celebration of life ceremony? I could never have imagined an honor like that or written that as an intention or a goal. It came to me because I was congruent with my principles and I paid attention to the moments that presented themselves. And I just kept saying, yes, let's do this. And so at that ceremony, these people came from all over the world, fellow adventurers, world leaders. There were educators, there were family members, people I'd never seen, or many of them I'd never even heard of, and they all said the same thing. John made me feel important, unique, capable, strong, and he told me that I was his kindred spirit. See, I thought he just said that to me, but he said that to everyone. I tell you this story, my friends, to remind you that the impact of your life will never be known by you or even the people who know you, because the ripple effects of who you are in each moment extend further than you could ever imagine today.